Welcome back to part 2 of Self-Inflicted Wounds, How to Heal When We Hurt Ourselves. I'm the serial intellectual. I'm the author of 10 books, the creator of 9 original personal development tools, and I have 25 years of experience working with people healing from self-inflicted wounds. Today, we want to pick up where we left off and specifically talk about what are self-inflicted wounds and where do they come from? So let's get into what are they. All right. Essentially, they're actions we take that result in a wound. It can be something as easy to understand as something that's unfortunately popular in today's world is cutting, right? And we don't need to go into all the demonstrations of that, but people take objects and they put them to their skin and they make marks on their skin, and some people try to take their life this way. It's a coping mechanism. People do it for all different types of reasons, but that's a self-inflicted wound. Sometimes people get so discouraged, they punch themselves or they'll yell at themselves or they'll starve themselves. Those are ways in which we can bring self-inflicted wounds on ourselves, okay? So if we were to make a decision, for example, a knowing decision to go use heroin, when we know all this stuff about heroin, we know we're inflicting a self-inflicted wound on ourselves. That's kind of what we're doing to ourselves because heroin's bad. There's no good way to talk about heroin. It's just a bad drug. It does bad things and it creates chaos in people's lives, right? So it's any action that induces or brings the consequence of a wound. Now, we need to differentiate between a self-inflicted wound and a wound you receive from somebody else because they are very different. And remember in part 1, I talked about why I'm so passionate about this because there's a lot of attention given to being wounded by someone or something outside of ourselves and how that causes trauma and how we need to heal. And I'm all for it. I'm here for it. But there's not a lot of conversation about what do we do when we cause the trauma on ourselves? What do we do when we're responsible for the wounds that are in our life, right? So we need to make sure we are differentiating those things because there are, in fact, bad people who do bad things to us. And there are, in fact, circumstances that some of you have been put in that were not of your choice and you suffered horrendously. And that's not your fault. Some of you suffered this when you were a kid and when you were very vulnerable, and that's not your fault. We're not talking about that. Now, we are going to get into when we do self-inflicted wounds as a result of us being in those type of situations, and there's a part that we have to own, right? But we can't own other people's evil. It's their evils, as we've learned, their choices, their consequences. And sometimes when they make those choices upon us, we have to deal with them too. But I can't be responsible and you can't be responsible for the evil that someone did to you, right? Okay, now, self-inflicted wound then is something we do to ourselves, but they're often administered or facilitated through third parties or second parties or agents. Let me give an example. Let's suppose that I had some friends and all of my friends did cocaine, and I knew they all do cocaine, and I know they have cocaine parties, and I know at these parties, because they tell me that when they bring new people to these parties, they pressure them into doing cocaine, and they smoke it in every different type of way, and they just push and people, go, 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 until the person does it, and they've got a high success rate at getting people who never do cocaine to come to their parties and do cocaine. I know all this. And then I choose, I'm going to go to this party. Now, they're responsible for what they're doing, and nothing eliminates them from being responsible for pressing and just kind of cajoling and manipulating and trying to get people in certain things, 100%. However, if I make the choice to go to that party, and I wake up the next day with a hangover and oh my gosh, I need Coke now because I did it. That's my choice. If I get wounded because of that, that was my choice. Self-inflicted wounds are things we do to ourselves. And there's a way to heal from it. That's the good news. But we got to take responsibility first, okay? So let's talk about where they come from, because if you understand where they come from, you can understand a little bit more about what they are. So first and foremost, the past gives birth to self-inflicted wounds. Here's how. You may have been born into a family, we call it a family of origins. That could be your mom, dad, brother, sister, aunt, uncles, nephews, cousins, friends of family. And in that environment, you actually saw people doing the behaviors that bring self-inflicted wounds. Could have been alcoholism, it could have been drugs, it could have been physical or verbal abuse, which then in turn multiplied and gave birth to all kind of dysfunction. So you may have grown up seeing people regularly do things that brought self-inflicted wounds. And you may have thought that's normal and that's how you just live your life. So that's how you started living your life. Another thing that could happen is, as I said about a few minutes earlier, is you could have had past experiences where you were hurt, and in turn, you sought out some type of relief from that pain. But the relief from that pain, right, was a self-inflicted wound. It could have been an escape into a drug, an escape into the wrong type of person, the wrong type of relationship, some type of sexual experience that wasn't wise or smart or healthy, some type of abusive relationship, because you were just looking for a way out, but it ended up being a self-inflicted wound, okay? But another place where they come from is present pressures, like I'm broke. When we're broke, we feel anxiety, we're fearful, we feel shame. Why am I broke? What's wrong with me? We feel guilt. I should have saved more money. I should have made more. Why? We have all this stuff going on and I'm going to be judged. And so we're like, I got to do something. And sometimes that thing we do can bring a self-inflicted wound. There could be present pains like physical pains. Some of you are in like physical pains. You're dealing with disabilities or arthritis or autoimmune things that a lot of us can't even understand. We can't even understand. You've got diseases and cancer and all these types of things, and you're in so much pain and you just want relief. But sometimes the relief ends up being a self-inflicted wound. And sometimes there's just temptations. You're lonely and you just want to be with somebody. So you take this standard and and it ends up in a self-inflicted wound. I understand. Or sometimes it's just an opportunity that you think is a great opportunity, except it wasn't. But another place where they come from is predispositions. And what a predisposition is it's a tendency. It's a probability that you're going to think a certain way, emote a certain way, behave a certain way, like wiring, okay? So you may have a tendency towards something, and it could be genetic. It could be behavioral because of what you learned, whether it's from your family of origin or from your current environment of friends or family. It could be psychological or emotional. But if you're predisposed to doing things that bring self-inflicted wounds, you have to be self-aware of that, because you've got to know where they're coming from in order to begin to treat them and heal yourself. You've got to get there. But they also come from deception and delusion. And we've kind of mingled that in. You know, you just get deceived. It could be a circumstance that makes you more prone to being deceived. Like when you're hungry and you're scrolling through, or it used to be when we watched TV, there would be ads on the television that would pop up and whoa, you know, and you're driving down and you never eat McDonald's. And then you see them go, woo, and you eat, right? I mean, it is what it is. But deception and delusion are a source, a cause, a place where self-inflicted wounds are often birthed. You get deceived and you start lying to yourself, and we're really good at lying to ourselves. And we just start believing the lies and then stacking up narratives to support the lie. But before you know it, you're like way over here and you're believing something, and then you're like, ouch, 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 ouch. And you go, well, where did that come from? delusion, deception. But ultimately, where do they come from? The decisions we make, the choices we make, the words we say, the actions we take, or the actions we don't take. That's what they are, and that's where they come from. Next week, we're going to talk more about the effects that they have on us. Grace and peace.